name is Lisa Gauthier. I'm a longtime resident of East Palo Alto. I've lived in this community for a long time. My family lives in this community. I'm a product of the community, and I was able to raise my children here. I was first elected to City Council in 2012. I was reelected in 2016, and now I'm up for reelection this year. So I come back with the experience from just being on council and doing the work and working through all the issues and the things that we have to work through. So it's been a privilege working with my colleagues on council, and I look forward to continuing in that vein. When it comes to my daytime job, typically I work in the private industry. Recently, I was the government affairs manager for an education tech company in Mountain View, where we worked with community members to provide a no cost to the student bachelor's degree. Right now, 30 people in East Palo Alto are earning a bachelor's degree that will cost them nothing when they're done and will change their outcome. But yeah, other than that, I'm just really committed to the community because I am the community and I've been here for a long time and I have children, and pretty soon I will have a grandchild who will also be in the community as well. So the decisions that I make will impact my family and this community moving forward.
You've advocated for affordable housing, but you also questioned what affordable housing is if rent stabilization only brings rent up as soon as people are displaced, which is an ongoing concern for long-time low-income renters especially. So how do you propose to address this issue?
So we know that with Costa-Hawkins and with some of the other plans, once Costa-Hawkins impact the housing stock. So we really don't have control over what those units are being charged. But even under rent stabilization right now, we can have affordable units. But once a tenant who is in an affordable unit moves out, that unit then goes to market rate. So it's affordable to whom at that point? Ideally, we need to figure out how do we keep that rate from being raised to market rate, or is there something that the council can do, and it's something that we probably need to explore again. I'm sure we've explored it because if we could have done it, we would have done it right now. This council has been really big on affordable housing and making sure that we have tenant protections in place. But that is a big concern. So it's affordable for now for the people who live in it, but with incomes not increasing as much as the rents are, sometimes are we really protecting people? So how do we keep a portion of these apartments affordable? That's something that's going to be important.
Can you speak on how much of that portion should be affordable housing? Can you speak on a number of how much affordable housing there should be in the city?
Well, we are the affordable housing community. We have the individuals who work in our community that go out, and a lot of them are service workers who are providing services to the other communities that are surrounding us that are very, very wealthy. If we don't create and save housing for that subset, where are those workers going to come from? So I believe, I don't know the exact portion of affordable housing, but there has to be a percentage of the affordable housing that at least protects those who are currently in the community so that we're not displacing individuals who live in the community right now.
But what about market rate housing? This council has already pursued market rate housing, like the San Ho proposal. How much market rate housing should there be? How much affordable housing should there be? Is market rate housing a priority on your list?
A market rate, I think market rate housing takes care of itself. It's just in the sale of itself on what's going on, because that's where the money is. We don't have an issue with market rate housing. If you look at the number of houses that are being sold in the community, those who have money and can buy market rate housing, they're doing it without an issue. It is the low income and the middle is probably the one that's missing, because we do a really good job of affordable housing. Market rate housing is kind of taking care of itself when you're thinking about buying. But what are we doing for the middle? So for those individuals who we've encouraged to go back to school, to get their degree and come back home, where are they going to live if they have a job that will pay them just a little bit over that low income rate? Where are they going to stay? So I think we have to step back and address that as well. And as we as a city continue to look at how we're going to develop our community for the tech jobs or the jobs of the future, there are going to be people that we want to elevate and lift out of that level that leaves them in the extremely low area And in doing that, if we don't address the moderate or the middle, we will be displacing people on our own ability to try to do something good. So we have to look at the middle housing as well.
In thinking about commercial development, you've said in a previous candidate forum that you don't want to see a bunch of 8-story buildings in East Palo Alto. So I'm wondering what you think is the right type of commercial development then, in your opinion?
You know, and when I say it, I don't want to see a lot of 8-story buildings. East Palo Alto is really close. We have to the water. So when you think about development, do you want a lot of high, tall buildings that are blocking the view of the city, or taking away the feel of the city? So when I think of this flat city, pretty much that is across the board. Our city hall is only 3 stories, 4 stories at most.
That's okay.
So when you think about that, do we want buildings that are towering over communities? And that's where I think I have some of the issues. Like when you're going into a community, if somebody's building in the gardens or village or any of these residential areas, these tall buildings are going to be towering over the community as a whole. And then where's the privacy for those who live there? So looking at the development to do what's best for a region or area. And as we develop, I'm big on mixed use development so that we're getting at least some housing or retail or something. So it's not just for developers. And there are some people in the community that think that we should just go as high as possible. And I just think that's not wise.
What role do you think tech companies should play in the future of the city? Do you think they should be providing more financial support, maybe something beyond something like Measure HH?
So the Measure HH is going to impact the companies that are within the city. Yeah, I think, you know, I'll tell you this. I think that our tech companies are large. They have a lot of experience. They're creating jobs that are paying that pay enough to allow people to stay within the community. So when I think about the tech jobs and these large jobs, where's the diversity and where's the training to help provide opportunities for the residents of East Palo Alto? And that's going to be the future of the community. If there's a tech company that's in the city and we know they're coming to the city, let's train our individuals to make sure that they have an opportunity for the jobs. Nobody should be excluded from any company that's in our city and not have an opportunity for a job.
How do you propose to create more jobs in East Palo Alto? You know, some members of the council feel like the first source hiring kind of didn't live up to its expectation. Do you have any other plan to sort of ensure that East Palo Alto residents will be getting new jobs?
Yeah, and I think we have to, so I'm one of the ones that didn't say that I didn't think it was living up to its expectation. I'll be clear on that. You know, when it comes to the city and in that forum we were talking about first source hiring in the city, we need more residents from East Palo Alto to have jobs within the city. But if we don't have individuals applying for that jobs, is it that first source hiring isn't working? Or are we not getting the information out to people to get the candidates to try to fill the roles, right? So I think there's a communication portion so that individuals know that the jobs are available, and then understanding what they need to do to qualify for those jobs is going to be equally as important.
Mm-hmm. And you also said that you want to protect small businesses. What did you mean by that? And how do you propose to do that?
Right now in COVID-19, if we're not, you know, we're sheltering in place still and a lot. So there's a lot of small businesses are feeling the pinch. They don't have to walk through traffic, that people aren't coming in and ordering sandwiches or getting dinners or things like that. So if you go and visit some of our small businesses, they're just barely hanging on. So how do we create a program where we're highlighting a business or telling people that that the business is still there, so that we're driving traffic and supporting the businesses that way? And not only that, as we develop and create space, let's create space for some of our small businesses. As an unincorporated area, East Palo Alto had small businesses. There weren't a lot of large businesses here. And so we know we stand on the shoulder of our businesses, and the Renaissance Center that's creating additional entrepreneurs. If we're not saying, look, we're going to make sure that there's space for you to develop your business, and we will try to create space with this development for incubator space and things like that. I think we're also doing our city a disservice.
speaking of COVID-19, this city has one of the highest rates compared to all of San Mateo County.
Mhm.
Do you think the city's response was sufficient enough? If not, what do you think the city could be doing better?
I think the city, communication has always been an issue for me. And I think we have to figure out how to communicate in the different areas. I know that, they've been working to send out in things through social media and printing out flyers. And, when it comes to COVID, it may be, I've suggested, let's use some of the police cars or the ice cream trucks. Let's use bullhorns to drive around the community to hone in that the message that we need people to social distance. We need people to wear their mask and to reinforce that this is real. I just think that we need to try everything. Staff has been doing a great job. I don't discount my staff at all. They've been doing a great job, but I think sometimes what's in cities like East Palo Alto, we have to think outside of the box. And how do we not just rely on social media, because everybody's not on social media. And if there's sheltering in place, people aren't getting out to where they can see the flyers. So we have to bump it up another level and see how else we can communicate with the residents.
What about for the city's low-income renters? This issue has been brought up many times where renters are looking at mounting debt, and the city's eviction moratorium ended on September 30th. Do you have a plan to support this? I know several council members mentioned working with nonprofits or working with philanthropic efforts to help these renters. Do you have a plan for the city?
Sure. So I sit on the board for Live in Peace. So Live in Peace is one of the organizations that have been providing rent for those who are low income. We know that we need to stop the spread of COVID in order to open up the economy so that people can get back to work and pay their rents. If we're unable to do that, we will continue to look at how we can help to pay rents. And at some point, I just think that this can spiral. So the most important thing we can do right now, again, stop the spread of COVID-19, open up the economy and allow people to get back to work. That's going to be the important thing. And at the same point, let's look at the Samaritan House, Live in Peace, and some of the other organizations that are helping individuals with rents, and really understand from not just the tenants, but the property owners of where the holes are for individuals who are not unable to pay their rent, and try to fill that gap first. But Lloyd, if we don't open up this economy, it's not going to just be the renters who are going to be in trouble. There could be others as well.
Mm-hmm. Does that also go for East Palo Alto's seniors? Many of them are homebound because of this pandemic. I'm wondering what sort of resources the city can help place for the seniors in order to help them during this time.
So as far as rental assistance or just
rental assistance, it could also be for food. Many of them go look to East Palo Alto Senior Citizen Center for food, not just for food, but also for socializing. I'm wondering, is there something, do you think the city could be maybe pouring more resources into centers like that?
Sure. So when I think about this, a robust senior program, it is a program that is training our seniors so that they can get on social media. So why can't we have a Zoom meeting? And they may be doing Zoom meetings. I'm not to say that they aren't, because I'm not at the senior center, but are there Zoom meetings where they can continue to knit when they're at home? Or I know that the city provides meals to many of the seniors who attend the senior center. And so they're continuing to deliver those meals to those seniors at home to ensure that they're still getting food. I know the county's Great Plates program, I believe it has ended, but I also volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club on most nights to provide meals to the community members. And there are individuals who will come up there and will pick up meals to deliver to our seniors. So as a community, we're looking at how do we take care of our neighbors and how are we good community members. So there's not only food at the senior center, there's food at EHP that's doing its lion's share of making sure that the food insecurity is being addressed not only for our seniors, but for our community as a whole. The Boys and Girls Club is providing hot meals Monday through Friday. And on Fridays, in addition to the hot meals that they're providing for anybody who comes up and can benefit from a meal, they're also providing groceries. So is, I think you can go to Project We Hope on a Tuesday during the day, and on Tuesdays in the evening, Church of Christ is providing meals. And I believe One EPA is doing meals as well. And I believe the school district is continuing with its meals. So there are individuals who are trying to take care of the community that way to at least make sure that there's enough food in the community. And if somebody doesn't have it, they can reach out and we're trying to help out in that aspect.
You've participated in the protests recently, but you've also said that East Palo Alto maintains a great relationship with its police department. I'm wondering what you think East Palo Alto Police Department's role in the community should be moving forward. Do you think it should change? Should it be maintained as it is, or is there something that could be changed?
Sure. So when I say, look, not all officers are the same. Not all officers treat all community members the same. And as a mother of a Black male, I know how my son feels. So from that standpoint, I know the issues that he has with policing. And it hasn't always been in East Palo Alto that he's had issues with policing. So I participate in the protest because I know that Black lives do matter, and that the way that Black residents, not only in East Palo Alto, if you watch the news across, the treatment is completely different. I believe that East Palo Alto police, I was proud of the chief when he came and he got out of his car and he walked the community and got to know the neighbors. We need to continue to keep community policing in mind. It has to be at the forefront so that you're not this big authoritative figure over everybody, but you're also known in the community and you know your community members. And as the police continues to do that, that is great. Now, what's missing? When we allowed Measure C to sunset, and that was a parcel tax that provided dollars that would allow, gave some money to some seniors, it helped with some services on the police department, and it also helped nonprofits to help youth. There's not enough youth programming in the community to allow youth, to give them something to do. There's no rec center that they can really go to. So when I think about community policing and the police interaction, we used to have a fit zone where the police would come out and ride bikes with the youth, and they would play volleyball, and they would do things in the park, and they would activate the parks. That made it really different. So they weren't just the ones who are arresting people, but they were out in the community interacting with people. And I think we could do more of that. I don't know if you have a question about the defunding the police question, but I know that comes up a great deal. Can we defund our police completely? No, we need police in our community, but are there areas? I think we need to look at areas where we can probably put more resources into community programming to help individuals have things to do and redirect efforts.
I think you're the only one that mentioned bringing up a youth commission, part of the city. How do you propose to do that? Because that's something as nonprofits like Yucca has advocated for. Tell me how you would go about doing that during your term and why. We're
going to have to work with nonprofits. I've been talking about this for some time, and I know our staff is very overworked. But when I was the mayor, the 2 times I was the mayor, I've always participated in the U.S. Conference of Mayors conferences, and if you look at those other organizations, they had youth that would participate. Even today, I can get on a call with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and if there's an issue, there's a youth commission in most cities where the mayors or the staff or the council is actually engaging the youth to understand what their needs are, or because I think we do ourselves a disservice as if we sit and we just make decisions and we're not thinking about those who are coming up behind us, or if we're not developing the next group of leaders, we're doing ourselves a disservice. So it's working with the Yuccas, and they said that they would be interested in doing something like this. I know that the YMCA has a youth governance group that does something and goes to Sacramento most years, so they would be willing. And I've also worked with the Boys and Girls Club. They have a group that really works with the youth to do something. And when my daughter was growing up, it was some leadership group where the youth were able to go to Stanford over the summer and stay for a week and learn about local government. And then they came back to the city, and I think their last meeting was to run a mock city. So they had to appoint somebody as city manager, and they had to have a city council, and then they addressed some of the issues. Those are some of the things that we need to continue to look at from within our city, because if you don't engage our youth, we're losing them, and we don't want to lose them. We want them to know that their voices are valued.
And you've also said in a forum that the city needs to address food insecurity. Some residents share similar concerns, describing East Palo Alto as a food swamp. What can you do to address this, or what will you do to address this?
You know, as we think about the food insecurity, we're glad that we have Cardenas Market and we have Target that provides some food. But if there's a way to have a large supermarket that's going to address everybody's needs, that's ideal. You know, when I drive, when Lucky's used to be over in Palo Alto, I would watch some seniors that would walk over to Lucky's to get their food. You know, when you can do services and complete your services within your own community, it keeps dollars within your community and it makes a difference. You know, we are a 2.5 square mile city. We're a walkable city. So if there was a way again to have the resources that we need inside, we should do that. Also, you know, the city, the food insecurity is not just the city's responsibility as well. We do have nonprofits that are looking at and addressing the food insecurity. And I've mentioned some of those, but number one will be EHP that provides food to the community as well, and all those other nonprofits.
Some residents would want to know if you have a plan to address the lack of sidewalks and lampposts throughout the city.
Yeah, so I know we've been advocating for Addison Avenue. You know, some of the residents have come over and over again to request sidewalks and a speed bump and things like that. And we do have a CIP plan to try to address the lack of sidewalks. And there have been some in some areas where some streets are not going to be wide enough for sidewalks no matter what, but they can finish them a little bit better and put some gutters in so that the water doesn't pond, and make them green streets so that they're safer. But that's something that's in the works with the city council now, addressing our CIP plan to address those issues such as sidewalks and streets and other infrastructure needs, and figure out how we're going to tackle it. You know, when the county, when in 1983, when the city took over this city from the county, it wasn't like the county left us in a good place and had put in sidewalks and infrastructure that we needed. We received a city that had a lot of needs, and so we're going to have to address it, and one item at a time. So we're getting there. I see some improvement. Some areas have received sidewalks. We're just not doing it fast enough for many community members.
Mm-hmm. And what about this city's water system infrastructure? I understand we have the water acquisition from Palo Alto and Mountain View, but when thinking about its own within the city, we have a sort of old water system infrastructure. Do you know how it should be improved, who should pay for it, and how it could be financed?
I don't know, but we will address that as a council, how it will be financed. Doesn't make sense to have some of the best water come to our city and then have the infrastructure not be in a place where it should be. So again, that's part of the CIP need. The CIP needs, we have addressed the need for the turnouts to increase the water pressure within the city so that we have better water flow. But we want the best water to come to the tap as well, so that the pipes have to be addressed as well. And often what we've said is, as we are during this infrastructure improvement needs, as we're improving the streets, while we're digging up streets, we should kind of figure out how can we replace the pipes when the street is already open. So if we're going to kind of resurface, can we find the money, or is the money there, or can we look for grants to make sure that we're improving systems at the same time? Otherwise, I remember one year where we had water main breaks after another, one after another after another. That was an indication that the infrastructure is old and needs to be replaced. And again, it is included in our CIP plan though.
How would you plan to address the traffic congestion, which is a evergreen issue that always comes up?
Sure. So right now it's weird to talk about traffic and COVID because we're not dealing with the whole traffic issue. But I think, you know, if we're going to be honest with ourselves with traffic, we have to address. At one point I sat on the board for the Dumbarton Rail, where we were trying to get a train to come across the water to take people to Redwood City that would allow them to get on the train and improve the traffic. We need to continue to talk about what Dumbarton Rail would look like to alleviate some of the traffic that comes through East Palo Alto to get back to the other side of the bay. Not only that, we have the TDMs, the traffic demand groups that can kind of figure out how do we get people from the train station out of their car to their companies without driving their cars. Really what we have to encourage people to do, the single occupancy driver, to stop driving alone and take public transportation. But in order for them to do that, public transportation has to work for them. And a lot of times it's addressing the last mile or having a schedule for public transportation that will accommodate the user. Even for our individuals, our kids who are going to school who have to catch a public buses to get to school and get home, it's having a schedule that will match the Bell schedule or will allow them to get to school in time and not be late.
Right. Yeah, some residents have brought up the issue of public transportation. Apparently, it's not the best means of traveling throughout the city. Some people have complained that there's not enough stops, or some people say at the stops there needs to be some sort of shelter, like seats. Is there a plan to address that?
So we've had that, Lloyd, and part of the problem with some of the shelters is that the wrong people sat in the shelters and they destroyed the shelters, right? So it became something that we didn't want. I know there was an issue on Bay Road with one of the shelters, and there was more drug use in some of the shelters and individuals who wanted to sit and ride a bus. So looking at that and trying to address that. And if you think about the gardens, we used to have a bus that would go through the back of the gardens and come back up, but because there's so many cars in the community, those buses were getting stuck in some areas and couldn't get through on some streets. So they have now just on the outside of the community. What we may look at and consider is a community shuttle. That's a smaller footprint, similar to the bus that we use for the senior center services, that can go through some of these back streets that will allow individuals to walk closer to their home or reduce the amount of walking they have to do to get to a bus.
Do you have a plan to better prepare the city's residents for these environmental issues such as wildfires and flooding?
Sure. So I don't know that I've addressed wildfires as a whole, and it's probably something that we need to step back and look at. But I do currently sit as an alternate for the San Francisco Creek JPA. And within the last few years, we completed the levee program that protects the gardens residents from that effluvial flooding that would come out of the mountains. That has flooded the community that I live in 98, and I believe in 2012 when I was newly elected, we had a huge flood in this area. So that levee has been put in place, and it will provide some protection. I believe 100-year flood is what plan that we've put in, and we've widened that area to allow more water to get out so that the community won't be flooded. But because of the economy, we still have other things that we need to look at. The council has done a great job as well, working with the JPA and Safer Bay and other organizations to get a grant to address the sea level rise that's going to impact our community. I also sit as a representative for the southern region for the Flood and Sea Level Rise Board in San Mateo County. We know that flood waters know no boundaries. So if East Palo Alto protects its borders, we're really not doing ourselves a service, because should there be flooding, water will still come into the community and our neighbors will be flooded. So we are really looking at the regional approach, that it's not just San Mateo County, it's San Francisco that has to figure out what they're going to do with sea level rise. And it's Santa Clara as well for those regions as well, so that we protect the whole area. But right now we're sitting down trying to figure out what that's going to look like. How do we make sure that every city is going to be protected when it comes to sea level rise? And for the Bayfront Canal, the other areas, I'm glad to be on a board that's addressing those areas that have flooded year after year and during flooding season. Let's protect those underserved communities that are being impacted by flooding.
Speaking with residents, I feel like they land in different camps at times. Some people say we need to pour more resources into them. They're more sympathetic. Other people find it can be a health concern sometimes, especially during the pandemic. You know, some people have complained that, you know, they interact at the parks where children want to be at. Some people have said that they find human feces in the front of their doorsteps. So I'm wondering, where do you stand in terms of how the issue of homelessness should be addressed in the city?
You know, and those individuals, here's my stance on homelessness. There by the grace of God go I. Should I lose my job and not have money? Could I become a homeless person? Any of us could land on hard times and lose our housing. But what we really need to address is the mental health issue that comes with some of the homelessness that's causing some of the issues. And we're not addressing the mental health issue. There are homeless people who are going to work every day, but they can't afford the cost of rents. That's one thing. But mental health, those who are using drugs and mental health, how do we put resources there? is going to be more important. Of course, we don't want to see anybody sleeping on the street, but there are some who refuse to come out off of the street as well, and they want to do the things that they want to do. I don't have the answer of how we address that subgroup. We can't allow individuals to cause havoc and reduce the quality of life for others. So we need to figure out, you know, with the help of Project We Hope, who's working on a project to create additional housing. For those that we can house, let's make sure that we house them or help them to become housed. And for those who are not and refuse to be housed, let's try to give them the wraparound services that they need to deal with the issues that they're dealing with. Yes.
Challengers have said it's time for a fresh perspective, or it's time for things to speed up on the city council. I'm wondering what your rebuttal is and why it's crucial for you to maintain your seat on city council come November.
Sure. You know, it's easy to sit back on the sidelines and say what should and shouldn't happen. It's like having a Monday morning quarterback. You can sit on the sideline and say, I wouldn't have thrown that ball over there, but you're not in the game. When you're in the game, you get to feel what's going on every day. And we are doing the lion's share and doing what's best for this city. Some of our challengers, I don't know that they really understand what it's like to be on a council and to try to make decisions and juggle a lot of different perspectives, because we're not a one issue city. There are a lot of things that we're doing, and a lot of the resources and a lot of the answers that we need takes money. And if we don't have the money to do it right away, we can't get it done. But I heard some of the challengers talk about the issue of housing, and some of their information is not even correct. So it's allowing them to go back and address and make sure that they're reciting correct information about our ability to create housing. We've created housing. If you look on University, since I've been on council, we have a senior housing complex that has been developed. We've put money aside for affordable housing. So it's not that this council is not addressing those issues at University and Runnymede. There's going to be another housing complex coming up. We've been working with the Light Tree apartments to put in housing. And then when I hear some of the challengers talk about competent council members, I don't know what that means to have somebody talk about competent council members. And it's never good to throw mud, because once you get in the seat, you'll feel what we feel and know the work that has to go. This is not a job that's paying six figures. We do it out of the kindness and the love of our hearts to address the city. And I know from my standpoint, I'm on the council because I want what's best for East Palo Alto. And I want to leave an East Palo Alto that's going to be great for my children and my grandchildren's and the generations that are going to come after us.